In the US, Joe Biden has made a predictable choice as his running mate for the presidential election. Well, when I say predictable, this is a choice that's been widely tipped since that moment that Biden bowed at the altar of identity politics and promised that his running mate would be a woman, and in particular, a woman of colour. California Senator and former Attorney General in that state, Kamala Harris, has featured strongly in speculation for months. She was one of the Melbourne Cup field who started out in the primaries early this year, contesting the Democrat nomination herself, but she flopped. As it happens, her most dramatic moment was when she brought Biden down a notch or two over his much vaunted anti-racism and civil rights credentials.
I do not believe you are a racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Ouch. Now they are a team. Biden announced his running mate in a series of emails and social media posts. And this tweet from Biden's photographer shows that when Biden Skyped Harris to make the formal offer, he had speaking notes. There they are underneath his phone. The notes say this is his first presidential decision. They talk about winning back the soul of the country, and they list 3 reasons he chose Harris. Nothing like a bit of spontaneity, hey? Of course, this is another trigger for those questioning Biden's mental capacity, which, of course, is exactly why the Veep choice is so important. And just on that, with Biden coming under a bit of criticism these days, have a look at how the left media in the US is standing up for him again. I showed you the other day how they reckon pictures of him riding a bike proves he's up to the job. Now they reckon he's getting a rough deal from the media.
When you see entire media companies essentially exist to tear down Joe Biden, is there an equivalent to that on the left tearing down Trump?
There really isn't. And, you know, what I would say, it's really a diet of this type of information that a lot of these voters are getting. A lot of the voters that I talk to, I can, you know, when I interview them, I do hear them saying a lot of the talking points that sound very familiar from some of these shows, which I try to listen to.
Hello? They can't think of a media organisation opposed to Trump? No journalists attacking Trump or barracking for Biden? What universe do these guys live in? They could start by watching their own station, of course, and then all the mainstream network news outfits and the Washington Post and the New York Times and all the rest of it, for CNN to seriously suggest that Trump does not receive enough media criticism shows just how divorced from reality they are. Anyway, what about Kamala Harris, who, of course, CNN lauds? The point right now is that Biden is favoured by the polls to be the next president. Long way to go, but certainly he's well ahead in the polls now. In which case, of course, Harris would be America's first female vice president, a woman of colour to boot. That's some slice of history. So come next year, Harris could be a heartbeat away from the US presidency. And more than half of Americans recently polled think Biden wouldn't serve out a full term anyway. So whatever way you slice it, and with all sorts of eventualities possible, the reality is that we will all want to know a lot more about Kamala Harris, because after today, she is well placed. She's on a rails run, in fact, to one day become the first female president of the United States. To talk about all the implications of that, who better to catch up with than former Democrat White House advisor Barbara Heineback, who joins us via Skype from Wollongong. Good to talk to you, Barbara.
Hi.
I mentioned that this choice of Kamala Harris has been predictable ever since Joe Biden sort of made it clear he was going to pick a woman of colour. Does this fact that he's sort of playing to identity politics Is this going to work for him, or are people going to be rubbed up the wrong way by it?
I have three things to say about it, Chris. First, one, who is she? Two, why did he select her? And then my thoughts about that selection. Who is Kamala? Kamala is a person, she's smart, she's a fighter, she takes no prisoners. I think I said that the other night. And I've seen her annihilate people, including Joe Biden. Remember when she went after him and called him a darn near racist? But on the other hand, when recently, a couple of days before he made this decision and announcement, there's a group in the States that's very powerful called 100 Black Men. And these are very influential professional men across the country in 35 or 40 states. And they wield a lot of power. And they said a couple of days ago that if he didn't choose a Black woman, that they would not support him. What Joe Biden, so the reason he chose her was candidates get the Black vote basically by going after that Black vote in what we call the Bible states, the southern, southeastern states of America, where they pretty much sweep 95% of the Black vote. Well, in recent years, that's turned out to be votes from the older people of the Black American community, because Trump received more votes from the Black community in 2016 than any Republican ever had before him. So Biden has made so many egregious mistakes every time he's mentioned the Black community. He talked about not wanting schools to be integrated because he didn't want his kids going to a jungle camp. And then he called Barack Obama, oh, he's different. He's actually bright and intelligent and articulate. Well, what the heck did that mean about other Blacks? And he made many other mistakes. So some of the things that Kamala believes in, she wants to have sanctuary cities. That means if you're in the states illegally and you have raped, killed, or been a thief, whatever, when you get out of jail, you're supposed to be immediately deported, turned over to ICE, our customs organization. Instead of that, they let these thieves out the back door, and they just disappear into the community, and they don't leave the country. And if they're kicked out, they just come back again and create other crimes. She believes in free health, free education, and open borders. Well, you cannot run an economy going at it that way.
This is the problem. Her sort of left, if you like, hard left baggage could be a real drawback for Joe Biden.
I suspect it will. And my personal thoughts on selecting her only because she was a Black woman, because even the person who gave her her political sea legs, who was Willie Brown in California, and, a very powerful man there, mayor of San Francisco for a lot of years, and legislated up in Sacramento, California for many, many years. The only way they ever got rid of Willie Brown was to change the legislation and give him term limits, if you recall that. But my personal thoughts on her as a selection, as much as I would love to see a Black woman be the president of the United States, or any qualified woman be president, I believe in what Martin Luther King said many years ago when our parents took us to Washington, D.C. to hear him give that I Have a Dream speech. Toward the end of that speech, Martin Luther King said that I have a dream that one day little Black children and white children can walk hand in hand and be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And that is where I stood then. I believe that. Probably became wedded to the world of politics that day myself as a youngster. And I believe it today. And I have serious concerns about Kamala.
Now, the other interesting thing about her is that she's Californian, of course, and it's a strong Democrat state. So there's no real bonus. It's not like she's going to help deliver a state to the Biden camp.
No, he's already got California. It always goes blue. So that's why they were looking at this Gretchen lady. And, you know, because Michigan is actually a purple state, which way is it going to go? And they need to try to secure Pennsylvania. Florida is very you know, it's gone purple. It's been blue, red. How is that going to go? And it was very close the last time around. So that also made me curious. But this, I think, was a selection by the DNC because the one thing that he could do was to probably, by selecting Kamala, is to bring back in all 5 or 6 of those Bible Belt states to get a solid Black American vote. And then she's an AKA, which is a huge, important sorority of Black women across the country. And she'll get, you know, a lot of support and rallying. And also, she's strong enough to debate. She's a good debater. And she'll be able to be out on the campaign trail, I guess, representing Uncle Joe.
Yeah, I think the big question, though, it's always a question for a vice presidential running mate, of course, is are they capable of being president? But it's particularly pertinent for her because so many people worry that Joe Biden will even make it as the candidate to November, let alone, as I say, more than half of the Americans surveyed don't believe he would serve out a first term.
Right. I think they're trying to just get this man across the finish line to January 20th. And like you say, that too is a big question. So even though the vice presidential selection has not been that important in the past, this year more than ever in USA elections, it is going to be incredibly vital. And whether or not they've done the smart move, if they think that there will be enough votes to, you know, pull him across the line, or if this was a calculated risk that might come back to bite them in the bum, you know.
We'll wait and see. We will wait and see. That'll be our focus day in, day out for the next few months. Just before I let you go, Barbara, I just want to ask about another outrage that has stirring up now around Donald Trump. And that is the suggestion that when he accepts officially the nomination of the Republican Party, neither he nor Joe Biden are going to the conventions. They'll sort of accept remotely. He's suggesting he might do it from Gettysburg. Now, his opponents are saying that this is a horrible politicisation of the national sacred site of Gettysburg. How do you see that playing out?
I think wherever Donald Trump decides to give his acceptance speech, when he talked about doing it at the White House, I mean, this is where the man works every day. What's wrong with that? No matter where he selects, they're going to have a concern with it. Because if Donald Trump gave the Democrats the correct time of day, they'd say, oh, but I wasn't talking about the correct time of day here. I meant...
All right. All right. Well, as a former Democrat, I think there's a lot of Republican supporters would support you. Maybe he'll do it from the wall. We will see. He will store up controversy no matter what he does.
Yeah. When you bring up the wall, you've got huge problems, because that's the other thing Kamala wants, open borders.
Oh,
so
fascinating.
That's going to be very interesting when you have people crossing the line to bring their sick to the hospitals and health care for free health care, and then citizens who have to pay high health care costs and can't get in to see their own doctor. They're going to love that one.
All right. Thanks for joining us again, Barbara. I really appreciate your insights.
See you, Chris.